I was just looking at the results from the latest Arrival study, and 46% of small operators, so almost half of small operators, are using manual methods such as email, spreadsheets, and other to take bookings. And I'm
Yes.
just like, that sounds insane to me. That
It is
they're,
insane.
they're
It is insane.
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a good spreadsheet, but if you have that feeling where you're like, there has to be a better way, well, there is, right?
There is. And it's not
Yeah.
expensive. That's the crazy thing. Again, these booking tech too is not expensive either. So yeah, there's better options out there.
Welcome to Arrival's Best Part of Travel podcast, where we take you inside the business of destination experiences. I'm Janelle Visser, and I'm here with Stephen Joyce.
Hi.
And today, we're going to be heading to the Southern Hemisphere, to Australia, for an in-depth conversation with Meredith Rangel of Bookable Tourism, who is passionate about getting tours, activities, and attractions online, bookable, and connected. So, to kick things off, Stephen.
Yes.
Where is the craziest place you've booked a tour or activity from?
Well, I don't know if it's particularly crazy, but a couple of years ago, you and I actually decided that we wanted to do something special for our birthdays that year. And so we were in our favorite coffee shop in Vancouver, and we just spontaneously on the spot made the decision, let's book. I wanted to do a trip to London, and we were going to combine it with going to Edinburgh because it was the pre-Edinburgh event.
Right.
And we thought we could combine it together and do like London and Edinburgh. And you wanted to do a cruise for your birthday out of Los Angeles because Arrival was going to be in San Diego. So we could do a cruise out of LA.
Yes, I wanted to go surfing in Mexico.
Yes, exactly. So it was like, we were just like sitting there drinking coffee or matchas or whatever the heck we were drinking. And we decided, let's just book something. So we ended up like booking two trips. In a coffee shop in Vancouver online, thankfully, because both, I think one was maybe on mobile, actually. One was on the laptop and one was on mobile, maybe.
Yeah, that was fun. And then the next day I looked at my credit card and was like, what did we do yesterday?
Yeah, that is the danger, is like, ooh, we're going to have to pay for that eventually.
Yeah.
So how about you? What's the craziest place you've booked something?
Yeah, I mean, that's maybe not the craziest place, but that was a pretty spontaneous thing that we did. I think for me, what jumps out is actually when we were on that cruise, I decided I didn't want to go home after the cruise, and I booked a flight to Australia, leaving from LA after the cruise. So for me, I think that was one of the most spontaneous ones, maybe the crazy place from the top of the ship deck, because I was trying to get good cell connectivity, and I definitely did book that on mobile. Yeah.
So, on the ship's Wi-Fi.
On the ship's Wi-Fi. Yeah. Just planning on the next adventure. Yeah. But then I have a lot of memories also when I worked as a tour guide for multi-day tours, trying to book activities for my guests in the most random places. Like they would come up to you and be like, oh, Janelle, I decided I actually do want to do this thing. And then I'd be like, great, I have to get cell connectivity. So let me climb up this hill to see if I can connect and book you into this activity. So I definitely have a lot of on the road booking stories as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And all of those things would have been impossible without the internet and online booking systems, which is what we're talking about today.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into it. But first, a message from our podcast sponsor.
Protect Group offers a service called Refund Protect. The way it works is that an operator or reseller offers Refund Protect at the time of checkout for an extra fee, usually around 10% of the ticket price. If the guest can't go because of some unforeseen circumstance, they request a refund through Refund Protect, and they get 100% of their money back, including the fee. The best part is the operator keeps 100% of their revenue, and they make a little bit extra. So to find out more, go to protect.group/bestpartoftravel.
All right, so let's get into it. We're talking to Meredith today, Meredith Rangel, Bookable Tourism, and a couple of reasons we really wanted to talk to her. First of all, obviously, we're going to Australia, and that's where she's based. So she has a lot of knowledge about this sector in Australia. She works with a lot of tour companies and attractions to help them get connected to booking tech and distribution. And so she knows that part of the industry really well. But also in general, she has a lot of knowledge about booking tech companies and about the distribution strategy for tours, activities, and attractions. This is just really her area of expertise. And she can speak to it from an objective perspective. So we have, I assure you, we have heaps of booking tech companies that would love to come on the podcast and tell you how great their programs are. And there are some great programs out there, but I think for our audience of operators, it's really valuable to hear from someone who can offer a more objective perspective.
Yeah, an
on
impartial view.
And not just saying use this one, don't use this one, but how do you figure out as an operator which one's the right one for you? So she'll get into some of that process that she goes through with operators that she works with, and I think it's going to be a really great one. Yeah,
she used to work for booking technology companies, so she's got that kind of inside view. She and I are actually very similar backgrounds in terms of that. We actually were competing systems at one point, but always had a really great relationship, and she's a wonderful person, just so well spoken, and really is able to boil down very technical things into language that makes sense for operators, which is really important. So
yeah, definitely. And there will be camels.
Speaking of crazy places.
All right, well, let's get Meredith in here. All right, Meredith, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, it's great to be virtually in Australia for a little bit. Why don't you start off by introducing a little bit about yourself and what you do and what you're up to these days?
Sure. So my name's Meredith Rangel, and I own a company called Bookable Tourism. And our mission at Bookable Tourism is to get 100% of the Australian tourism industry with best fit booking systems and ticketing technology in the experiences sector and connected into distribution. We started this business about 4 years ago now, after working for a booking tech company in the startup world back in kind of 2015, when a lot of the booking technology and res techs were starting to come out in the experiences sector. And prior to that, I actually worked very heavily in hotels and resorts. The hotels I worked for were very experiential hotels in some of the most beautiful parts of Australia, such as Uluru and in Queensland or the islands and so on, before moving into attractions. And then I went into that booking tech and ticketing tech space. I worked very heavily in distribution before that as well. So I was able to bring a lot of that distribution knowledge into that booking technology that I worked for. And during that time, I could see that there was a significant gap. It was quite new that we were doing. And however, for me, I never felt like the gap was closing fast enough in regards to, I guess, consumer behavior and how people were wanting to purchase travel. So that's why I started Bookable Tourism. I brought that wealth of knowledge from working in that booking tech company in understanding how people procure technology and trying to teach people good practice in finding booking tech. So they find that best fit, they find true partnership, and then they can work with their booking technology and connectivity partners to best build their business. I also am very big picture. So I see this as a way to connect Australia to the world. And after working with Arival and knowing how important experiences and things to do are on destination choice, my understanding is that the more experiences we have out there connected into the global marketplace, the more consumers can see there are amazing things to do here in Australia, and that will actually turn that into a seat onto a plane to come down here. So that's part of my bigger goal at Bookable Tourism as well.
Well, and we've seen that in the research, right? That people are traveling more. They are planning not based on destination, but based on what they want to do.
Yes.
So that makes a lot of sense. And I know, Meredith, you've been a friend of Arival for a while. We met at an Arival, and I think your mission is aligned so closely with Arival's mission of bringing more tour operators online and getting them connected. And so I'm super excited that we're able to do this podcast together and talk more about that. What are you excited about right now?
What am I excited about? I think it's change. There is change happening. And I'm really excited to see the next 2 to 3 years on what that looks like in the face of particularly distribution and how things are evolving as technology is evolving. And so even with obviously AI and agentic search and everything that's coming around, it's starting to flip a little bit on how people consume and how we distribute as well. I'm very closely watching this space on, well, what does that mean for distribution? What does that mean for the OTAs? What does that mean for our DMCs and inbound tour operators? How is that going to potentially move market shares? And then also, because I am a very big problem solver, how do we then help not only our operators, but our distributors make sure that they're ready to evolve with this? So, we have a very strong inbound sector in Australia. So they are run by a lot of the inbound tour operators, or otherwise known as DMs. And, they have really good value to our country. We are a long haul country. We are often quite perceived to be quite expensive. And so these inbound tour operators have a very valuable part in, I guess, packaging and selling Australia. So where do they fit in this new world as well? And is the technology keeping up to keep them, abreast of these changes as well? And then how do operators connect in and so on? So beyond the OTAs, I try to look at the whole market mix and see where these changes are happening, and then how do we best get our industry ready to make these changes. So I'm excited to see it because it's honestly been a lot of same old for the last 20 years. So I'm really interested to see this next phase happen.
Yeah, and it's a great time for us to be coming to Australia. So
Yes.
all that stuff you mentioned, bringing people together to talk about these different things is what Arrival's all about. And so super excited that we're going to be bringing the event to Australia so that we can facilitate these conversations and this, openness towards the new things that are happening. Why do you think it's so important for Arrival to be coming to Australia now?
For a variety of reasons. Well, as you know, Janelle, I've been wanting them to come for about 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And have been campaigning for that. This is a really good time to come, because what I've also been seeing is that the experience sector is now getting to a point of maturity that maybe 5 years ago we weren't at as well. So, booking systems, we're very lucky here. We had some really great booking tech actually come out of this market. And so you've got a huge amount of operators who've been working with ResTech now for the last 10 years. And they understand what a net rate is. They understand connectivity. And then they start looking at, well, what's the next step for me? What other opportunities are there? And so Arrival coming allows a lot of those more mature operators start looking at additional pricing, revenue management, other sales revenue channels, and kind of opening up their minds. But then in saying that, we also have a huge amount of operators who still are, I guess, less mature and that might not have booking tech. And unfortunately, that's more than what we have that do have booking tech. So, really showcasing again to these experienced operators that there's this whole world out there that you can turn potentially your business from being a hobby into something that's more of a part-time or full-time basis, and getting the right customers to your experience. And then actually showing, yes, there is all these great booking tech options. Yes, you can work with OTAs. You just have to understand how. And yes, you can work with inbound. You just need to learn how, and providing that kind of pathway, options for them. So this is a really good time. I feel like Australia is ready for it as well, from all levels, from Tourism Australia right through to our regional tourism organisations, in supporting this event, because they do understand that there is this gap which Arrival fits really nicely, and particularly in that technology and connectivity piece.
It's interesting, Meredith, that you talked a little bit about the fact that some really good booking tech has come out of Australia. Australia has always been a leader in the distribution and digital space for experiences, going all the way back to the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse, to to the initiatives around connectivity, all of the efforts that Tourism Australia and the regional DMOs did in terms of educating operators. And that seemed to be quite successful for a while. And then it seemed to sort of fall by the wayside a little bit, and certainly took a hit during COVID, obviously, because there was just nothing going on. Have you noticed that void being filled now? Are they starting to re-engage and re-educate? Because I think the problem or not necessarily the problem, but the challenge with that approach is that it's continuous, right? You have to continuously reinvest in educating and keeping guides and all that sort of stuff up to date. And it seemed like some of that missed. And so now there's a little bit of catch up happening. Is Arival, then you're seeing Arival kind of fill that gap now where before that was really done by, the regional DMOs and Tourism Australia? And do you see them in the future starting to pick that up again?
Yes. So as you mentioned, like with the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse and a lot of the education provided by our state tourism organisations and regional tourism organisations, there has been a lot of that in the past, particularly, when ATDW first came online. This is in the earlier stages of the internet and having a website and so on. And then
I'm going way back in the way
we're going way back now.
But I'm that old, so that's why I mentioned it.
Then looking at the experience sector, and Stephen, and I know, like particularly the booking tech, the res tech ramped up in 2015. That's only 11 years ago. And the reality is there's not many people in this market that understand that well and then go, okay, well, this is where booking tech actually fits. And this is how it works within the broader distribution as well. And unfortunately, that's where it started to fall over, because there was possibly a lack of knowledge and resources at that point. I can remember attending ATE when I was working for the booking tech company. The very first ATE, we were the very first booking tech to actually ever go. That's the Australian Tourism Exchange for anyone out of Australia. My number one question was, so are you like Viator? And I had to try and explain to them going, well, you know how when you go to a hotel and you check in to a hotel and you make a booking and they look up your booking, it's the same thing. It's the infrastructure that holds the booking. And I used to there's a clip from Seinfeld where he's trying to pick up a rental car and the rental car's not there. And they're explaining, like, you hold the booking. That's what you're meant to do, is hold the booking. And I recommend anyone looking it up because it's hilarious. But that was basically like, this is what we're trying to do. We're holding the booking for you. And so I think that there was that lack of knowledge to educate at that point as it was evolving. And so now we're in a situation where the market's possibly evolved without having enough people in market to be able to educate around this. And my business is a team of 2. There is only 2 of us. We can only do so much as well. So this is where this opportunity to have Arival come in to help spread that word and actually showcase this is where the market's at, and this is why you need booking tech, and this is why you need to be connected in, and the direct impact it has beyond your business, but also as a destination. That is where, I think Arival will fit in really nicely in helping, I guess, educate our industry here.
I'll find that Seinfeld clip and put it in the show notes. So for anyone who wants to watch it. Awesome. Yeah. So let's dig in a little bit more on booking tech. You wrote actually along with Arival's researcher Anne, the booking tech report from our last year's study of operators. So, and this obviously applies to more than just Australia. This is across global operators all across the world. And so, Australian operators are not the only ones struggling to connect to booking tech. This is a universal problem. What stood out to you from that report, from the research in that report? What stuck with you from that?
That it's still considered as overwhelming. There's over 300 res techs available on the market. And look, it varies what's available in each different region. But for an average operator, it can seem overwhelming. I know I need a system, but I just don't know where to start. It's which one is better than the next. And so this is where we see what I call the one and dones, where they go, oh, so-and-so up the road uses it for their business. I'll just put in the same platform and they'll do a demo. And then they'll go, oh, that'll do. And then they just put it in. And then in implementation or a few months after, they go, oh, it's actually not doing what I really need it to do. And then they churn and then they jump to the next one and so on. And so whilst in the report, you could see that booking tech satisfaction had actually increased, there was still a huge amount that were not satisfied with their booking tech. Now, I have the benefit in my business that I get to play in a lot of different booking technology platforms. And so I see a lot of the variances and the differences. And they're actually pretty good. They usually do what they say on the box. And I always say too, that 80% of what you need, every single booking system does. They all do the same thing. It just varies in user flow, intuitiveness, but they usually do the same thing. So I guess that kind of comes back to, again, why I even started Bookable Tourism well, are you procuring technology correctly? Do you actually know what you need before you put in a booking system? Do you know what the business needs are? Do you have a plan for the business? Are you planning to grow your business? So what tool do you need to help you facilitate that growth? Or what tool do you need to help run your operations? Or what tool do you need to grow your channels? What is it you actually need? And I find that report still highlighted that to me, that a lot of businesses still don't actually know what they need before finding a booking system. And I think that comes back to education and going, well, here's a really good framework and follow this framework, and you should find a good platform for your business as well. So that really stood out to me from the booking tech report. The other thing was attractions. So I also work with a lot of attractions in the ticketing space as well. And what became clear to me as well, that ticketing technology for our attractions haven't moved at the same pace as maybe booking systems for our tours and activities. So we're dealing with a lot of attractions that have ticketing technology in, but it's either incumbent technology, so it's old, it's legacy, it has limited to no connectivity, and they're also not meeting what consumers are expecting in regards to booking their tickets and so on. And then for these attractions, it's then potentially stifling revenue opportunities as well, because they've got ticketing tech that only allows them to sell direct. They have no other way that they can sell their tickets or their experiences, and they're having to resort to manual methods or external channel managers or extranets from the OTAs, which was, fascinating for me as well. And I am seeing that a lot here on the ground in Australia as well with my attractions clients, that we're often looking for workarounds to get them into distribution because their ticketing platform doesn't actually facilitate it. I've worked with one where we couldn't even put an agent against a booking in the ticketing platform. We couldn't, even if we used a channel manager and they wanted to transfer the bookings into their ticketing platform, we couldn't. It physically was, because we couldn't say agent A booked this on this net rate. It wasn't actually possible as a feature set. So in today's day and age, and I refer to another Arival report, the Global Attractions report from last year, that became fairly evident as well. And in the way that people were consuming attractions, in understanding that, yes, they'll look at the attractions often pre-arrival, often will still book tickets either on the day or the night before and so on. But it was through the channels that the customer wanted to book in. And those channels at the moment are sometimes being closed down because of these manual processes or aren't even available. So I found that as quite a significant gap that that will impact experiences sector as we evolve, that the ticketing tech hasn't quite kept up to the level of connectivity like the booking and the res techs have as well.
Yeah, I was just looking at the results from the latest Arival study, and there's a section on if they're not using booking tech, then what are they doing? And it says that 46% of small operators, so almost half of small operators, are using manual methods such as email, spreadsheets, and other to take bookings. And I'm
Yes,
just like, that sounds insane to me. That
it is
they're,
Yeah.
you
insane.
know, they're
It is
Yeah.
insane.
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a good spreadsheet, but like
I
you get to
just,
that, if you have that feeling where you're like, there has to be a better way. Well,
yeah.
there is, right?
There is. And it's not
Yeah.
expensive. That's the crazy thing. Again, these booking tech too is not expensive either. So yeah, there's better options out there. And from the report too, the other one that I found shocking from my region was APAC. APAC had the lowest
Hmm.
booking tech adoption globally.
Yeah.
Our region was the
Yeah.
worst, and whereas North America, which is what, 4 or 5 times the size of our industry, was sitting at 86% adoption. And I was like, this is embarrassing. Like, how can this be?
Yeah.
And again, as
But
Stephen
that's
said,
all
like,
of APAC, though.
yeah, that is all of APAC. But,
Yeah.
we do, again, have really great tech coming out of this region, but it's not being adopted fast enough. So
No.
Hmm.
going back to your question before, this is why Arrival needs to come into this area and really educate a lot more and getting that adoption rate up as well, so we can get more visitors to our part of the world.
And the challenge with APAC too is, because you mentioned APAC, is that the way that tours and activities and experiences are sold in APAC is still very, very reliant on local distribution, so local resellers, activity resellers on the ground. DMCs are a big, big part of that, and they don't use any digital systems.
No.
And, person to person in destination at time of activity type sales, right? Rather than pre-bookings or, 72, 96 hours in advance type bookings. This is all done at the time of the activity. So it's a very different booking landscape than what we see in, markets like Australia or North America and Europe. So, and the other thing too is that it's a very mobile first approach with a lot of APAC. A lot of those operators are phone only, and I hate to say it, but a lot of the res tech is just not great on mobile, right? They're overly complex. The interface is not great on mobile. It's really designed for laptop or, large screen type environment. So there's still some work to be done there in order to really get that adoption, I think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I always go back to, with the mobile first, to an operator that I spoke to many years ago. I remember asking me, and this was when I worked for the booking tech, he's like, will I be able to make a booking while I'm on the back of a camel? Because he ran camel tours.
That's a very specific requirement.
But as an owner operator, if you're out
Yeah.
there and you're taking tours, you need that mobile first, which is exactly what correct. And that was 10 years ago that I had that question. So yes, there is work for the res techs there to become more mobile friendly. And in saying that as well, I'm also seeing a shift here in the booking tech, where some of the players that came out, 10, 11 years ago or longer, I'm starting to see some newer players come into market, and their user experience is slick. It is very much as easy to use like an iPhone. They've taken that kind of concept of, I want my 80-year-old grandmother to be able to use it like an iPhone. So they've brought that concept into the res tech. And I'm starting to see these new players come out, and I am also watching those very closely, because as we get older and the younger generations are coming through who are technology natives, they use smartphones, they understand how easy and intuitive it should be. It's like getting those younger people into our industry. It's like the technology needs to also catch up and go, okay, let's look at our UX. Is it going to be something easy and intuitive for any employees that we have come in as well? Because sometimes when you go into some of the older ones, it looks old now, and it looks like it's from 10 years ago. And yeah, so I feel like, I keep telling everyone, I'm like, I feel like we're starting to shift from the Napster to the Spotify. So we're starting to see that shift happen as well with the newer res techs coming out, which is very interesting to see.
Yeah,
Well,
and it comes back to your original, or not your original comment, but when you were talking about the ticketing systems, right? And how the ticketing systems haven't evolved or haven't adapted or innovated, and so they've been kind of stuck in this place. Part of that is because ticketing systems work on scale. And generally those attractions that they work with are large attractions. They'll get a lot of them. All of a sudden they've got a captive market. They don't have to work as hard from a competitive standpoint. And so they don't feel like they need to innovate, because why fix it if it ain't broke? And you end up with stagnant systems. And I'm starting to see that happen. And you're probably seeing this too, Meredith, is I'm starting to see that in the ResTech space, the ones that came out very early on, the ones that have a very large clientele, large user base, aren't innovating because they feel like they don't have to, because they've got a great captive audience, not knowing that these newer companies that are coming out are being creative and innovative and offering, they're able to build systems much faster now because of things like AI and all of the modern technologies. They can build these systems faster, and customers are not loyal, right? I'm sorry, but their loyalty does not exist anymore, if it ever existed at all. And if there is a better system that is, less expensive potentially, or has better features and has more distribution, operators will jump ship. They will move to a different system.
And I'm also saying
I think it behooves these systems to stay up to date.
And these operators too are actually looking beyond now just taking a booking as well. They want resource management. They want it to be smart enough that their guides can put in their availability. And against those guides, they know what their either education profile is or what tours they run, that the system's smart enough to go, oh, Sarah's available for the 10 o'clock departure. It'll automatically allocate Sarah and advise her. They want more seamless ops. It's beyond, it's not just a booking system anymore. It is a fully functioning piece of infrastructure within your business to run the business. So I'm seeing that also change. I've got one client who, the checkouts, that's another thing. It's like the checkouts haven't evolved as well. And some of them, again, look really dated and the consumer experience isn't great. And I've got one client who her brand and her checkout experience is as important as the entire website and everything else. And I have seen her just go, no, just due to the checkout experience. They're getting more savvy, like understanding, driving the direct business. I'm seeing revenue management starting to happen as well. So that's also another trend I'm seeing here on the ground, is that channel managers are all about live inventory. But now that they're wanting to revenue manage, so they want to go, okay, I've got 16 seats available. I want to drive 10 into my direct business because I do enough work in that to get that, and have the other 6 as the top up through my OTA partners and things like that. So stuff that is actually normal in the hotel world. Now our tour operators and our activities and our attractions are starting to go, I want to get better revenue mixes, and I want to have a bit more control in where my product is going as well. So these are all the new things. I'm getting excited about that, because with AI too, I'm like, well, instead, I'm like, why can't we have dynamic availability? Why can't we have that,
or
like dynamic pricing? Yes. I know that's another thing in Australia that's very low on the uptake. Yes. Only
well, it's generally pretty low in general. I think that report even said, there was some shift, or it was in the latest operator landscape report. There was starting to be a shift. Most, like 60% is still static pricing, but variable pricing. So not even dynamic pricing, because dynamic pricing is a very small percentage, and mostly on the larger attraction side. But variable pricing at least is starting to have more of a foothold, and then hopefully dynamic pricing as well. I mean, there is a challenge with dynamic pricing. It doesn't have the best consumer reputation, right? Thanks to companies like Uber and, these sort of, that use demand or surge pricing, right? That's not really what it's about, but dynamic pricing and surge pricing have been used together to, I think, tarnish the reputation of dynamic pricing a little bit. Mind you, airlines have been doing it for a long
I
time
feel
too,
like,
and nobody
yeah,
likes
I was
airline
gonna
pricing
say,
either. So
Uber surge pricing is what
Yeah.
a lot of people can relate to, and
yes,
it's
Yeah.
not giving it a good, it's not giving it a
no,
good reputation. No.
yeah,
But
No.
as you were saying, that a lot of the booking systems aren't keeping up to date and keeping innovative. Some of them are, and some of them are bringing
hmm
Yeah.
on things like AI and helping
Yes.
operators with, operators get overwhelmed by booking systems, but they also get
Mhm.
overwhelmed by AI. And oh my
Yes.
gosh, now I have to learn this too. So
Mhm.
when booking systems are integrating AI into their systems and saying, hey, you don't need to worry about how it works,
Yeah.
but here's what it can do for you. It can
Yeah.
help you figure out how to make more money. Then I feel
Yeah.
like from an operator's perspective, that's a pretty big win, right?
That is a pretty
yeah,
big win. And so
Yeah.
even here, obviously like everywhere else, it's all AI, AI, AI. And I'm still going, okay, before we look at the shiny new tools, again, let's look at booking platforms. And if you've got a good platform that's got AI functionality as part of it, that's the win you're looking for at this point. Get the foundation right before looking at other ways that you can use it operationally, but get that foundation
Yeah.
right. One of my most exciting ones that I saw, it was actually at Arrival in San Diego, so the year before last, was in the Innovation Summit. One of the booking systems was doing forecasting, and they were using all of their AI tools to do really quite in-depth forecasting. And I had just been sitting for 3 days with a client who had an incumbent ticketing system and so on, trying to forecast for them on very little data. And I sat there and going, oh, this is my dream, because forecasting is actually becoming more important. And for a small operator, it's also becoming onto their radar as well. They're starting to bring in more sophisticated business practices and starting to forecast so they can go, when do I need to hire up? Can I put extra departures on? Can I make more money in these times and so on? And also understanding the markets of when do I need to pull things back sometimes. And another operator here in Australia who does use a really good tool that sits on top of their booking system that does all of this for them as well. They were saying they understood that during their low season, they actually scaled back so much because they realized they were consistently losing money over that low season. And they had tried the years before to try and drive more business into that low season. But the reality is they weren't getting visitors to the region in the first place. So they ended up scaling back, almost putting the business into a partial hibernation during that time so they could, I guess, stem the losses. But then she said because of her forecasting, and she knew that the business would pick up so much over our peak period over the summer, that they would be fine. And so in the 12 months of doing that, they're able to make more revenue than they ever had before because of this kind of forecasting aspect. So businesses are getting more savvy as well. And so they are demanding that kind of technology to be part of it. So yeah, I'm very pro forecasting, very pro data. That's why I love booking systems as well. But yeah, they need to keep innovating to keep answering to the market as well.
Meredith, we talked earlier about ATTW, and you mentioned ATE, the Australian Tourism Exchange, and Australia was really a pioneer, I think, in terms of connectivity in the early days. There were APIs that were available. There was all kinds of distribution that was happening for both accommodations and for content, not necessarily bookings, but content on the experiences side. Where is Australia now with connectivity, and where does it fit into the global connectivity space in general? Because that's a huge topic.
Mm-hmm.
Arrival's been a very big supporter of Octo and connectivity in experiences in general. But we're not seeing the same kind of adoption in APAC around Octo. So where is connectivity at now?
Well, it's slow in there. So in looking back in time again, our hotels, so SiteMinder, for example, one of the biggest channel managers globally, is actually an Australian company. So it was born out of here. And I actually luckily got to work in hotels during, I always go the before, the during, and the after. So, loading the rooms onto extranets to sell them, and then panicking because our 2-bedroom penthouse apartment has sold through what if, and also sold direct, and what are we going to do? And, the kind of mess of that. And then the sales team in that time going, oh, we're going to cut our OTA partners because we can't manage it, to start seeing SiteMinder then basically centralizing all of that. So overbooking, and then the connection of SiteMinder into the property management systems and the reservation systems. So I got to be deeply part of that. Now, in the experiences sector, the one thing that I always thought with our res tech was that when the Resdes and the Fair Harbors and everyone came out, they already had channel management as part of the platform, which I always thought we were kind of like that one step ahead of, we learned from the hotels. We don't have to go through that. Essentially, it's all native. And what that allowed for our sector here is, huge education, because again, hotels have been working with OTAs for a long time. And then I can remember the day the announcement came out that Viator had been bought by TripAdvisor. And then I was working for an attraction at that point, and I swear I had Expedia knocking on my door the next day. I was like, did you guys fly in from the US overnight, like from the announcement? And it felt like an arms race for these OTAs to get experiences on their products, trying to get as much product as possible. And so then all of a sudden you've got this experiences sector who previously had been locked out of distribution because they have limited small inventory. And as we know, with more traditional distribution, they operate often on allotments, which if you've got 12 seats, you can't offer an allotment. They offer free sale, which only kind of apply if you're an attraction with general admission tickets, or on request. And on request is fine, but for traditional distribution, it slows the process down. So you don't get sold as much. So when these connected channel managers and booking platforms arrived, all of a sudden these experiences sector could access distribution, and they could do it from inside their platform. And so it was a very quick education. I swear, when I first started at the booking system startup I was at, I felt like I was educating on net rates, distribution, what an OTA is, what an inbound tour operator is, and trying to doing like a very quick 101 on distribution and what this can mean to your business. So there was that aspect of it. Now the connectivity piece is starting to evolve again. So this is where, again, maybe not having enough education in the market is that people aren't understanding that if you work with Viator, for example, that you are also working with a plethora of other programs. It's not just the Viator app or the Viator website that you're being listed on. They've got a very strong B2B program. So you're now in the systems of all of these agents, for example. They don't understand if you work with Big Red Group, you're not just on Red Balloon, you're also going to be as part of their Experience Oz program, and you'll be listed on Head Out, and you'll be listed on all of these other programs as well. You're getting access into affiliate marketing programs. So you're getting access into working with Expedia and the Walmart agreement, like the breadth of your reach. And there's this lack of understanding of what that means. But also there's a little bit of fear about it, because then they go, but I've lost control over my product. I don't know where it's getting shown. But at the end of the day, I've always been, if you have priced in your distribution and you've priced it incorrectly, it doesn't matter if the booking has come from a Walmart member, but it's come through Expedia, that's come through Viator or soon to be Tickets. The booking's arrived at the end of the day. So it actually doesn't matter. And that just as long as you're providing all the correct information to go out as much as you can, but let them sell your product as much as possible. So there is a big lack of
as long as you've priced it correctly.
As long as you've priced it correctly. Absolutely. So I still do education in net rate pricing as well. I still do a lot of that with a lot of, from large attractions right through to small businesses starting out. And that's one of my big takeaways. If you are starting out and you're looking at pricing, put net rates in there from day one, because you're not having to scramble later or create another product specifically for trade. You've got it built in from the very beginning. And so that gives you flexibility to sell.
That's a great reminder. Meredith wrote a great article for Arival on this. So we'll put that in the show notes as well. If you're like net rates, oh, what is this magic? Check the show notes. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And then from the connectivity point, if you've got in your booking system and then you're connecting to a variety of OTAs, and this is where I love Octo, is that we were talking about it yesterday with a client, that mapping from one OTA can be different to another OTA. And that, so, one is seamless, where it's just putting in product codes, where the other one, you have to work with their IT department to get it mapped. And for a small business, that is just overwhelming and confusing. They're just like, this is too hard. Where do I find this? I don't know what this is. So this is why I'm a big advocate of Octo as well, in how do we get that connectivity piece to be standardized across the board and to be as easy for our operators and attractions as possible. We just want to make it easy. And this is where that again, overwhelm can come in, where the lack of understanding around connectivity and the actual reach that it has is kind of lost a little bit here. And that's where, again, another big education piece in and around that. And that's why I often attend the Arival events. Social commerce, we talk a lot about social commerce. And I recall at San Diego that Clute getting up saying, hey, we power TikTok shop and we do Little Red Book. And this is really valuable information. So if you want to tap into social commerce, you need to know nowadays which distributor has that agreement. So you make sure that you are actually contracted with them as well. So that's where I'm finding a bit of a gap at the moment as well.
I love that you brought up the TikTok thing. I was actually thinking as you were talking earlier that this whole thing about mobile, being on mobile, it really reminds me of the marketing mantra, which is basically be where your customers are. And in marketing, if your customers are on TikTok, you need to be on TikTok. And in booking systems, if your customers are booking on phones on the back of a camel, you need to be accessible from that point.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that is the thesis of this episode.
So if you're a booking system, go back to your personas and do a little bit more market research around making it mobile first. But
yeah. And if you're an operator, what would you say to operators? I feel like part of the message is don't get overwhelmed.
Easier said than done.
Easier said than done. So, there is a plethora of resources out there. So on my own website, I do have a booking resources hub for Australian tour operators and activities providers. It's all free. And that because I just want as many people to get, as part of my vision, to get as many operators connected. That's a really good starting point. Arival has a huge amount of information as well, including checklists, how to choose a booking system, everything like that in there as well. So there are resources that you can start from that help you with those frameworks and kind of demystify it as well. And as I always say, there are 3 things that determine best fit. So firstly is that we know the 80% rule, they do the same, and that through understanding your business needs is highlighting that 20% difference between the different systems. And so if you know what your business needs, you're going to figure out pretty quickly what that 20% looks like. And then the second thing is ease of use. Is this easy for me to use on a day-to-day basis and what I need? And intuitiveness, because in tourism, we know we are quite a transient industry. We often have a lot of people who we hire up over our peak seasons. We need systems that are easy to train new staff that are only going to be with us for 3-4 months. It's not going to have them all locked away in a room for 2 days learning how to use a system. So it's got to be really intuitive as well. So they're my 3 main things I tell anyone of what to look out for that booking system. So, but number 1 rule is know what your business needs first. So before you even look at a booking system, sit down, write a list of what do I actually need and think about it from a granular perspective. So don't just go, I need an online checkout. Think about, well, what kind of checkout do you need? Do you want a widget? Do you want an iframe? What's the user flow look like? Can I put my own colors? Branding is how configurable is it? Can I put my Google Analytics code or my metapixels? All of that kind of information. Think about it on that granular level of what do I actually need from this. And look, if you...
And do you cover all that in your checklist?
Yes, we do. And they can download a checklist as well, and they can add that extra 20%. So we kind of put the 80% in of what nearly every business needs, and then we look at the then you've got the extra space for your 20% as well.
Yeah,
But
I was going to say, because it's one of those, they don't know what they don't know. So
yes,
really
well, that's why we have
checkout.
Yeah, so that's why we have a checklist now, because can be overwhelming looking at a blank piece of paper. So at least you've got a starting point. So if you go, no, I don't need that, you can just cross it out, or you can add on to it as well. So, but that's the number one thing, is know what you need, know what you want from a tool like this. View it as a business, as a tool, like you would as having an email platform, like having a CRM. It is a tool to the business. Don't think of it as a cost of sales. So make sure you budget it as a business expense, not a cost of sale, because it's to facilitate a booking. It's not actively selling your booking. It's to hold the booking. Going back to Jerry Seinfeld, it's to hold the booking. And then once you've got that together, then start shortlisting your booking platforms and start going, okay, well, have a look at their websites, send those inquiries through and ask for a demo, and then you can go from there. And remember, you don't have to be a one and done. If you've done one demo and you're still not 100% sure, you can always ask for another demo and ask for specific things. And the other thing to remember is there is no one booking system that's perfect. There is always going to be gaps or something that it doesn't quite do that you want it to do. That's okay. But just being aware at that procurement level of when you're purchasing it, of these gaps, and then asking to see what's the workarounds, what does it look like, because I need this outcome. So be outcome driven, not process based as well, because again, putting a new booking system changes processes internally. So really be outcome driven about what are the outcomes I need, because at the end of the day, a piece of technology should be making your life easier, not harder as well. So really focus on those outcomes and making sure that you've got the most streamlined processes to deliver those outcomes that you need. So that's my quick 101 on where to start.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. That's a great note to end on as well. It's just how to make this really practical for people. And I feel like coming back to where we started, if this all sounds like too much to you or it sounds exciting, come to Arival. We'll do it in person.
Yes, we'll be there and
figure it out in person. Yeah.
Exactly. And the res techs will be there, the channel managers, everybody's there. So it is literally a smorgasbord of everything you need as an activity and tour operator and an attraction. Everyone's there. So it's such a great place to connect with these different players and make intros and just network with your peers as well. That's one of the most valuable things is that I love about Arival as well, is that you have tour operators all in the room learning from each other, asking those questions. And, that's also the extra value of it as well. So definitely come along to Arival, and we'll be there. So you can come and ask us questions too. And learn some more.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you so much, Meredith.
You're welcome.
Super
Thanks
excited
for
to be
me.
super excited to see you in Australia soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
In June. Looking forward to it.
So, Janelle,
Yes.
lots to unpack in that interview. Lots of great pointers for operators. What were some of your key takeaways?
Yeah, definitely. I think that the thing that resonated with me most was just this idea of being mobile first and user friendly. And so there's a lot of systems out there that have been built in the mid 10s or whatever you call that, the mid 2010s that look great on a computer, but on mobile, they're not built to be mobile first. And so they work better on a computer, and you get that feeling like I need to be on a computer to do this, so it works better. But that's not how travelers are booking travel. And we talked earlier about our spontaneous travel bookings. Yeah, if I'm booking a trip way in advance at home, maybe I'll pull my laptop out. But if I'm on the move, if I'm already on the way and I'm thinking, what experience do I want to do in this next place I'm going? I'm using my phone. I probably left my laptop at home, or at least buried in the back of my bag, because I don't want to be distracted by work while I'm on holiday. And so the mobile first thing, it seems like it should be so obvious by now, but there's still so many systems that are behind on that. And also operators who maybe aren't thinking that's as much of a priority because they're at their offices, at their desks, on their computers, but their travelers are on a lot of the time on phones. And the research backs this up. So mobile first was definitely a takeaway for me, as well the user-friendly nature of it. So I think she mentioned at some point, like you don't want to have to do like a multi-day workshop with your staff to learn how to use the program, because you might have high staff turnover, or you might have a lot of guides who are using this on the ground, and it needs to be easy. It needs to be user friendly. And that resonated with me because, as I worked as a guide for quite a while for a multi-day tour company, and I was the guide who was trying to book people into activities along the way. And I didn't want to spend 2 hours of the drive booking people through the payment app that was, I wanted to spend that time telling them stories and telling them about the local wildlife and telling them about what we're passing and what we're seeing. The experience for the guests is going to be better if the experience for the guides is better, because the guides can spend less of their time wishing they could throw their phone into the ocean and more of their time telling good stories and making the experience really smooth for the guests as well. The guests don't want to be spending their time worrying about, is this payment app working, so, or this booking app working? Why is the guide so frustrated and angry at their phone? So the user experience, it trickles down from the top level, from the company level, to the on the ground, to the guides, to the passengers or the guests, as well as the travelers who are booking in advance.
Yeah. And I think, like you mentioned, a lot of the incumbent systems that are out there were built in the mid 2010s, 2015 and sort of newer. And a lot of them haven't changed because they haven't felt the need to. And that's part of the challenge, is that as you become a major player in the space, you become complacent, and it becomes easy to not have to innovate because where are customers going to go, right? But in 2011, there were maybe 20, not even 20 booking systems on the market. Now, according to Arival research, there's over 130 different systems that are on the market, and newer systems are coming online all the time. And those newer systems are being built on platforms that are mobile friendly, that are much easier to use, that are using things like AI and have things like distribution and connectivity with Octo and all those sorts of things baked in right away. And so I think we're going to start to see platforms that were built very early on that haven't continued to innovate. We're going to see them really start to, I think, change and innovate to keep up, because otherwise they're going to start losing market share.
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting how she mentioned that, and I dealt with this for Arival when we put together the guide to how to choose a booking system. One of the things that I did when we were putting that together was I went through all the booking systems and wrote descriptions for them. Yeah. And at first it was, okay, these 3 things, they do really well. And after getting through a few of them, I was like losing my mind, because I was like, they all say they do the same things.
They all do the same thing,
Well, in a sense, they all need to do the same thing, right? Yeah. And Meredith made the point that they are going to be 80% the same. But that doesn't mean that every system is the right fit for every operator. And that doesn't mean that there's one system that's the best for every operator. Different systems are going to be better for different operators based on what their needs are. And a lot of operators haven't done the work to go in and self-assess what are our actual needs and how do they line up with these different systems. And so that part of the process, don't overlook that part of the process. But then, what comes on top of that and who's innovating? And the big thing now is AI. You want to be using AI in some way to stay ahead of the curve as an operator, but it can be overwhelming, especially if you're a small operator, to figure out how to do all that on your own. Now, if there's booking systems that are layering AI in so that you get the benefits of it without having to know how it all works, there's a huge benefit there and a huge differentiation factor for those booking systems who are innovating rather than just trying to keep things going. Yeah.
It's, innovation costs money. So if you're primarily focused on the bottom line and maintaining profit and all that sort of stuff, sometimes it can be easy to overlook that and just focus on how do we get more operators on the platform and just focus on sales. So, but in this market, in the tour operator market, there is so much diversity in the types of businesses that exist. I mean, Arival, at the beginning of every report that comes out, it's like the different categories that exist within tourism activities. You've got like hundreds, everything from Disney parks all the way down to Joe's kayak company that has 4 kayaks and they do 2 tours a day, and that's it. And there's so much variety in between. And a system that supports a major theme park is not going to be the same system that supports a kayak company that has 4 kayaks. It's just very different types of systems. They both do the same
Yeah.
thing. Customer can book a tour at a particular time and pay online, but the functionality that needs to exist, the reporting, all that sort of stuff that needs to exist in those systems is fundamentally different. So, and then across water sports versus helicopter tours, right? Anything that involves an aircraft, for example, has very particular requirements depending on where they're located. In the US, they need to have FAA certified components to them for creating flight plans and weight and balance and all kinds of very specific aircraft related things that aren't needed by the camel tour.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of camels, right?
Yeah. But
Well,
it was such a great example of the camel tour. Like that particular operator's requirement was it needs to be bookable from the back of a camel.
Yeah, in the
Because,
middle of the desert.
you know, in the middle of the desert, because I need to be able to manage my business from the back of a camel while I'm leading a tour in the middle of the
Yeah,
desert. And
exactly.
so, you know, that's a very specific requirement, but there are certain things that would work well in that situation and certain things that wouldn't. If you have to do 12 clicks before you can get someone booked on something, that's too many clicks when you're on a camel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that I have extensive knowledge of being on a camel, but
Yeah. Or booking things while being on a camel. That's yeah. There you go. I think the other thing that really stuck out to me talking to Meredith and just kind of having an understanding of the Australian technology landscape over the last 20 years is how quickly you can go from leading a space to falling behind. In Australia, for a time, they were probably the leading in terms of national digital strategies. They were one of the leading countries in terms of getting their industries online and bookable and with national distribution systems.
Yeah.
And that fell away very, very quickly. And now they're, in some regards, kind of playing catch up. And it just goes to show that technology changes very fast, and you could be innovative one day and you could be a leader one day. And if you don't keep up, you could fall behind very quickly. So it's an important message, I think, to operators as well as to just booking systems that, you know, maybe listening to this as well, is don't get complacent, right?
Yeah.
Technology's changing. The way that customers book is changing, right? We're talking now about mobile, but mobile's been around since 2008. So now it's AI. So, and AI agentic search and all that sort of stuff. So it's like, what's next? If you're not there supporting the ability for customers to book through AI potentially, then, you know, you may have a great mobile interface, but if people are shifting away from mobile now into something else, you've got to keep up or you will get left behind.
Yeah. Well, and she used the example from attractions that there's many attraction ticketing systems that are still being used in Australia and probably other places where they do the online ticket purchasing, but there's no connectivity. So you can only purchase, like, you can't use distribution channels because it only allows you to purchase directly through the attraction. And yes, direct bookings are gold, but you want people to be able to book in a variety of ways so that, like, for example, AI agentic bookings can happen, or people who are booking through online travel agents, or a live human travel agent, or an AI travel agent, that any of these people can book or visit your attraction. And so if your technology is holding you back, maybe it's time to think about a change.
You want to sell where the customers are, right? And if the customers are on a particular platform, you want to be on that platform in order to sell to them. You don't want to have to just rely on having the customer find you, because customers are lazy. They will go where they can find stuff and they will book where they are comfortable, right? So you got to go where they are.
Yeah, definitely. And so we're going to Australia.
Yes.
Because for some of the reasons we've talked about, there's a big need in the APAC area for more knowledge and awareness and learning about booking tech and connectivity and distribution, and Arival brings all those people together. And so super excited that we're bringing that to Brisbane, and we'll get to see Meredith in person and a whole bunch of other folks as well. So a lot of these booking tech providers will be there. wanting to show off what they got. And
Yeah.
a lot of operators will be there and a lot of learning. That's where the magic happens, all the in-person learning from each other and meeting each other. And I'm super excited. For all
Yes.
of
And
that.
expect
Yeah.
crustless Vegemite sandwiches at snack time.
Oh, really? I'm expecting a perfect flat white every time.
Oh, perfect flat whites and crustless Vegemite sandwiches. There you go. That's what a
I don't
treat
know
that'll
how
be.
many people you're going to win with the Vegemite sandwiches, but
I will
taste.
convert you to Vegemite eventually.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's one of those things like durian, right? Durian and Vegemite. Steve's crazy food choices. Anyway.
Yeah, definitely had a lot of very satisfying avocados in Australia.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Avocado
pies.
toast with a
and-
thin bit of Vegemite in there for the savoriness.
Okay.
Anyway, I'll get off the Vegemite train. I think we've given them this podcast sponsored by. No, not sponsored by. No, just a Steve favorite. Anyway, on that note, I think we've come to the end of this episode. Thank you for indulging our craziness today. We really appreciate it. Go and follow and share this podcast with your friends. And to find out more about the Arival event in Brisbane and our other upcoming events, go to Arival.Travel. Thanks so much, Janelle. It was great chatting with you again today.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, everyone.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.